Adler. Hello.
Hi, Annie. How are
Very
you?
nice to meet you. I'm
Nice to
fine.
meet you as well.
Oh, I could never imagine this scenario, you delivering webinar at Magnus. This is an honor for us. Thanks for
Well,
joining.
thank you very much. Well, at my age of 79, I'm happy to talk to young people everywhere around the world. So I appreciate the opportunity as well.
Oh, thank you. How's your day? Where are you currently
I
located?
am in California and my day is starting with you folks.
Oh, that's great. That's great. By the way, back then I've known that we have trained around 70,000 recruiters. Is this the right number?
Well, I would say it's not just recruiters, it's hiring managers and recruiters. And I would say
Yeah.
more hiring managers than recruiters. So obviously there are more hiring managers than recruiters, but so I'd say it's probably 5 to 1 or 6 to 1 recruiters to hiring managers to recruiters.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I would like to represent you to our like attendees, whoever is joining, and I will mention this number
Okay.
because it's huge. It's huge.
Well, it's huge,
So
but also remember that I've been around for a long, long, long
long.
time. So
But do
when
you
you
know?
divide it by 30 or 40 years, it's not meant to be every year. So
No, but it's still an achievement, I would say. Do you know how I'm bringing you as an example during our courses? I'm telling there's someone whose name is there from 15 years ago until now. So whenever you tell me that, whenever we tell to ourselves, like, we are done, we have learned everything, then please go to Lou Adler's LinkedIn profile and you will see like the amount of job he's doing. And it's a magic how you can be there like on the
let's
front
say
line
this, you're
throughout these
never done.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're never done. And anybody thinks they're done. Well, I remember in 1990 when the internet just came out and people said, I've finished the internet. So it's very similar. It keeps
Uh,
on growing.
exactly. Same with AI, right?
Hmm.
Always place to grow. Yeah. Okay. As our attendees are joining, I want to just a couple of words to greet everyone, and then I will give the whole stage to you, Mr. Adler. Hello, everyone. I'm seeing many familiar names and surnames here. Very thank you that you have joined today. For us, I've just telling the same to Mr. Adler that for us it's a real honor to welcome him at Magnus. Let me shortly introduce myself. My name is Ani. I'm the founding CEO of Magnus HR. What we do, we provide HR and recruitment services 80% in Armenia and 20 to 30% globally. Mainly our focus is on tech and Europe. And under Magnus HR, now you see the team here. We have HR Edu Hub, and our HR Edu Hub's president is Alice. Actually, she's the hero behind this event. The idea of HR Edu Hub is to build a really a comprehensive HR ecosystem here in Armenia, HR education ecosystem here in Armenia. And we are doing these sessions quite often on a monthly basis. And we are extremely happy that Mr. Adler agreed to join this time. I will share a couple of notes about him, and then maybe Mr. Adler, you can tell more about you. For whoever who doesn't know about you, but I think everyone knows you very well. So, Mr. Adler is CEO and founder of the Adler Group, a consulting and training company that helps many businesses, to improve their hiring through a performance-based hiring system. And this is copyrighted system of yours, right? This is
Yes, it is.
totally, yeah. And as you see, Michel the Adler enjoys sharing his experience, and it's like years of training, lots of hiring managers and lots of recruiters. And also, he's the author of we call it our recruitment Bible. Wait, I will find the book on my tablet to show you. Yeah, yeah. Wait,
Where is it?
it's
I have to see this.
yeah,
I have to see it.
it, I found it here.
Okay. Yeah, that's
See.
that one there.
Yeah, so this book is like our recruitment Bible from day one. I have learned with so much from here, and it's still very actual. And I have many questions today for you, but sure if we manage in time. So shortly, again, thank you everyone who have joined. I think we will remember this webinar for years. You know, this is a very big moment for all of us.
Well, thank
Mr.
you very much
Adler, yeah,
for that
thank
nice
you.
introduction. So are we ready to go? Is this our time to go now? Okay, I assume the shaking of the head yes is the same as it is in America. Yes, I understand that. So let me kind of preface this conversation with the idea that feel free to ask questions throughout the program. Uh, I might be able to see them because they're kind of over here, right there. But if I don't, maybe Ani or somebody can read them and maybe wave your hand if you want to ask a question. If it's because I'd rather answer the questions when the point is raised rather than waiting to the end. But we'll have time at the end to do it as well. So yes, I've been around a very, very long time, and I actually retired 3 years or so ago. I said, this is hard work. Hiring good people is hard, hard work. And not many hiring managers really want to do it. And not many candidates really want to take the time to make the best career decisions. Most people from the candidate side are more interested in getting a paycheck. And as long as the job is reasonable, they're okay. Hiring managers, on the other hand, want to fill the job as quickly as possible. So a lot of the decision making that companies and candidates make alike is based on pressure or pain. I've got to fill this job. I have too much work to do. Candidate, I've got to get back on the payroll. I've got to do this. I've got to make the mortgage payment or the car payment. And all of those are legitimate pain points. Unfortunately, and this is what I tell candidates, and I've told them year after year, don't make short-term decisions or long, don't, excuse me, restate that because this is important. Don't make long-term decisions using short-term data. That's hard to do when you have to make a payment. It's hard to do when you have to work overtime if you're a manager because you don't have somebody there. But if you can pull that off, it's will change your life almost by being able to do that. And I don't want to say it's easy. I, as a recruiter, try to orchestrate that process. And I've been doing that, orchestrating that process since 1978, probably before your parents were born. But I didn't start working in industry in 1978. I started in 1968, and I was in engineering, and I was in manufacturing, and I worked on guided missile systems, and I worked on handheld calculators. I worked on automotive parts. So I worked in a lot of different situations. I left industry just because I didn't like the boss. I quit 4 times, quit, uh, and then I became a recruiter, which seems kind of stupid, but and sometimes in retrospect, it does seem stupid to me too, but it's what happened. But I realized that hiring could be a business process because I had been in business for 10 years and I'd managed manufacturing systems and business systems. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is this business level thinking. And I assume most people here are in HR. And if I had to say anything for HR, you have to think like a business person, not like an HR person. I know that sounds odd, but it's critical. You got to see the whole picture. You got to zoom out and say, how does this affect the business? How does this affect the company? How does this affect the people I'm hiring? And too many people in HR are risk averse. I don't want to do that. I don't want to break anything. No, sometimes you need to break things because they're not working perfectly. So let me kind of talk about that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me go through the quick agenda and let me also apologize ahead of time. I get excited about this stuff. And when I get excited, I talk fast. And when English isn't your first language, it's even hard for me to understand. But it's got to be even harder for you to understand. So make me slow down, make me ask questions, and that will be helpful. So it's important. And just to give you another sense, I was born in the New York City area. And in New York City, they talk 2 to 3 times faster than everybody else in the world. So just be careful about that. But here's what I want to talk about today. I want to give you an overview of this business process called performance-based hiring. I also want to teach you a new game to play. It's called Moneyball for HR. We're going to change the rules of how we hire people. And if you want to make progress, you have to change the rules. And this is sometimes hard for HR to do. But if you want to be a leader, you have to do things differently. Part of doing different things differently is this hiring formula for success. In fact, I'll start pretty much with that because I promised Liz that that's what I would do, but it's at the core of everything we do. Uh, we'll measure quality of hire, and you can almost look at it from a candidate side as well as the company side, or the hiring manager side. And then we'll have Q&A. And I'm going to give away some pretty cool tools, but you got to wait to the end to get those. Excuse me. And just so you know, it's morning here in California, a little bit after 8 o'clock. So this is coffee. So, and feel
As
free to ask
Mr.
questions.
Adler, I
Yes,
will, so you are okay if I sometimes interrupt you and deliver the questions from our participants, right? You are
yes.
okay with this
I think you
approach?
can,
Okay.
if you want, there's a way to
Hmm.
raise your hand in
Raise
Zoom.
your hand. Okay,
No,
great.
I think there's a button you can push.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
thinking
there
because
is,
I
there
was at
is.
a meeting yesterday where the yellow hand comes flying out of your
Yeah,
picture.
yeah,
So,
I will do.
it's
Hmm.
pretty hard to
Hmm.
miss the yellow hand, waving hand. So whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want,
I will do.
just
Hmm.
interrupt. But that would be great. You
Hmm.
already have a question?
No, no, no. I was just going to tell that English is perfect. We understand 100%, so don't worry about that and feel free to enjoy your coffee. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's the hiring formula for success. This took me 10 years to develop this formula. 10 years to develop this formula. But the formula is correct. In fact, I work with folks at Harvard University to validate that this formula is correct. It's the formula for human performance. And it basically says ability to do the work in relationship to the fit. And the fit is fit with the job. Do I want to do this work? Fit with the company. Do I like this company? Do I like this people I work with? Ability to do the work in relationship to fit drives motivation. And because motivation is so important, we raise it to an exponential power. And that equals results. And sometimes if you're not motivated, and I think we all felt that, we have people who are not motivated. They could be perfectly capable, but they don't like the situation, so they don't work hard. On the other hand, we find people who are above average ability, who just are motivated by the work, have extraordinary results. And it was the idea that if you find a job that motivates you, you can be a superstar. So the idea is let's find jobs that you can be a superstar. Technical ability, and let me dig deep a little bit. Ability is just your raw technical ability. What are you capable of? Can you work with teams and manage teams? Can you organize your work? Can you project it out and get it done on time? Can you solve job related problems? Can you influence people and work with people? That's ability. And quite frankly, not easy to measure, but not hard to measure either. Give people tests, you talk to them, you have them take exams and stuff. You can figure out most of those things pretty easily. What's hard to measure is the fit factors. So again, it's ability in relationship to fit. Does a candidate really want to do that work? I mean, I remember talking with someone probably 30 years ago, uh, and he was a PhD in chemistry. And he came to me and says, everybody says I'm overqualified for this job. And I said, what was the job? And he described it. And I said, when was the last time you did that work? He said, about 10 years ago. So I said, you are overqualified. You're not motivated to do it. You're capable of doing it, but you haven't done it for years. It isn't what you naturally do when you're because you just love it. He said, okay, but they didn't define it that way. When I told him that way, he said, yes, you're right. I am overqualified for that job. The pay, so you got to be, does this candidate really want to do that work at this point in time in that situation? And the situation is the company, it's the team, the pace of the company. I'm working with a company now in the Chicago area, but works worldwide on designing using the latest state-of-the-art design tools on building big buildings, big commercial buildings, office buildings, and these design tools lay out the highway system, the plumbing system, the electrical system, the grid system, the power system, and then the building itself. And this company is using state-of-the-art tools. But if you're a design engineer and using old style design tools that aren't AI invested. They just people don't want to do that. So it's the pace of the company, the tools you have, the culture of the company, and most important of all, the manager you work for. I literally, and I'm going back 35, 45 years. I worked at a company. I loved the job. I was running a small company making automotive components, the whole company. I didn't like the group president. And he and I argued every time he came down to my plant. I just said, no, I don't want you here. I was 32 years old and we argued. And I quit 4 times. His boss then asked me to come back. Then I said, I can't do it anymore. I loved the work, but I didn't like him. So it just got me out of business. And that's why I'm doing it. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. I mean, that's why I left. So all of the fit factors are very, very important. Another thing that happens when you hire people, how many times, let me ask you this question, maybe just put a percent down in the chat area. How many people do you think when they first take a job, so they get a job offer and they start on it work, what percent of the people actually know exactly that work before they start? Or how many are surprised? Oh, I didn't know that was a job. What percent does that happen? Just put that in chat. I mean, just get an idea.
Mm.
What percent of people who take a job aren't sure what the job is when they are disappointed? Yeah, I think it's 50. I mean, in America, it's probably over 60, 70%. Oh, I thought that was the job, but it's not exactly the job. So it's a
Oh.
lot of people are surprised, and that causes people to be disappointed. Let's keep on going. So it's ability and relationship to fit drives motivation, and it's motivation to do the job, not get the job. So I was on a phone
Mhm.
call last week with 12 managers, and they said, we love people who are prepared, are on time to get it done, do all the homework. We don't like people who are late or haven't really studied our company. And I said, that's nothing to do. That's
Mm.
a motivation to get the job. That's nothing if they want the job. Now, I would say that once they know what the job is, and if they don't take that time, that's a signal. But for the first meeting, it's not the signal. It's that they want to get the job. And you got to be able to separate motivation to do the actual work. That equals results. No excuses, just get it done. So here's the whole formula. I'm not going to repeat it word for word, but it's the ability to do the work in relationship. It drives motivation because motivation is so important. We raise it to a power. And if a person's just slightly motivated to do the work, they'll be average. If they're not motivated to do that work, they'll be below average. And if they're highly motivated to do that work, they'll be above average, as long as they're reasonably competent. Now, I will say that in the years I've been a recruiter, there was a caveat to this. We placed somebody in who was not competent but highly motivated, and they fired him in 2 weeks. They said he broke everything. He was going around. He was incompetent. So if you're incompetent, you want a lazy person. If you have to hire an incompetent person, make sure he doesn't do anything. To put him in a corner and don't let him do any work. That was a joke, a United States joke or a European joke. Not a very good one, but you'll get it tomorrow morning. You'll see, oh, that was actually funny. Sorry. Okay, so here's the idea. The drivers of success are not skills, they're situations. I don't want to minimize the need to assess ability. That can be done. I'll give you some ideas on how to do it. What's hard to do is the situation. Can this person work in this job in this set of circumstances, at this pace, with this manager, with these tools, and with this team? Most people ignore that part, and yet that's the critical part of driving motivation. So let me just ask you this question. Does that sound right to you? Does it seem logical or does it seem off base? Anybody have a comment on that? You don't have to, but you can say it.
I think that's uh, I've read it in your book. This is not my idea. This is actually is coming from your book, but it's not the check mark in the list matter rather than the mix of the skills. Like if maybe someone doesn't have the whole list, but they're still able to do the job. So I would say if we are speaking about single and very, how to say, plain list of the skills, yeah, that doesn't matter. But if we are talking about a very specific mix of the skills which gives the ability to do the job right, then here it matters. So the key word for me is like mix of the skills rather than paying and check
Well, we're going to
marking
change
each and
that idea a
everything.
little bit
Yeah.
on how we identify
Mm,
that, but let me kind of just let's kind of go forward.
mm-hmm,
But it's a good, excellent point. So I want to show you how to both measure ability and the fit factors. To me, you get those two right, you're in the game. So this is where you need to play Moneyball for HR. Uh, what I've discovered over the years that some of the best people in the world have non-traditional backgrounds. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term Moneyball, uh, because there was a book that came out about 10 years ago about a U.S. baseball team where they didn't look at traditional skills. They looked at different kind of metrics to measure people. And it found out that a lot of the best baseball players did things differently than what everybody thought they were because they looked at the data. Well, Moneyball for HR is similar to that. There are some great people, people who get promoted faster, people who learn faster. And even this company that I was mentioning about designing state-of-the-art buildings and infrastructure systems, they find people who've designed other kinds of products, not in that industry, using similar technology, but not the same technology, are superior. So it was turns out, but if they just box checked the skills, they wouldn't have found those people. So they had to change how they found them. Sometimes these people grow faster, get promoted faster. So there's a way to find people in an unusual way that doesn't involve checking skills. That's Moneyball for HR, and I want to give you some ideas on how we can implement that. But first, I want to go, well, here's the big idea. I want to give you an overview of performance-based hiring. Some of you already know it, but when I started this talk, I said performance-based hiring is a business process. And the business process is unusual because what we're looking for is not hiring a person to fill a job. We're offering someone what we call a win-win hiring opportunity. A win-win hiring opportunity means the person is successful on the first year anniversary date. So if I hire a person and they start, let's assume they start September 1st. September 1st, 2026, we talk to that person. What do you think of that job? Oh, I'm still happy here. I love it. And you talk to the hiring manager. What do you think of that person? Ah, great person. That's called win-win hiring. Thinking long term. Not, and what somebody told me that last week, they said most companies hire generic people for generic jobs. I thought that was a great quote. They hired generic people. Now, all these skills, they give them a standard job. They get there, they don't like the job or the situation. We're changing that. Performance-based hiring is a business process, and it involves these steps. And I'm going to go back a little bit to tell you about my first hiring project as a recruiter was in 1978. It was for a plant manager making automotive components. And the president of the company asked me, hey, I need someone with 10 years experience, maybe 15, has to have an engineering degree, has to have at least 5 to 10 years in automotive, producing machines this way, the same kind of equipment, the same kind of layout, the same. I mean, and I looked at the president of this company and I still talk to him every now and then. I say, Mike, that is not a job description. That is a person description. What do you want the person to do? He said, oh, that's a weird question. I said, I want someone to turn around the manufacturing plant because it's losing money. So I said, let's walk through. It was right around the building. So we walked through the plant, spent an hour and a half walking through the plant. It was a crummy, dirty plant. Material was laid out wrong. Machinery was laid out wrong. Some people were working hard, some people weren't working at all. So we said, we got to fix this, got to fix that. We found 7 things that would turn the plant around. That became our performance-based job description. Hired someone 3 weeks, did it in 6 months later, exactly as planned. That's step one. Define the work that a person needs to do, not the skills that a person needs to do. In this case, and we call them KPOs, key performance objectives, or another term is called objectives and key results. We define the actual work that needs to be done. We focus on what a person needs to do, not what they need to have. Now, from a recruiter standpoint, we got to find people who can do that work. And my whole focus is I don't spend a lot of time talking to everybody who applies. I don't even want people to apply to a job. I pre-qualify everybody. We call them semifinalists. A semifinalist can do that work. They can't do the work. Why do you want to hire them? Number two, they have been recognized for doing that work. They've been promoted faster. They gave a talk at some conference. They wrote a white paper. It's on the internet. They did something. It could be on GitHub if it's technical. But good people are visible once you find their name. I mean, they do stuff. Just like you folks raised this webcast. Well, a lot of people got involved with it. So a lot of people who organize this webcast are visible. And you guys who run this webcast know other good people. So if I was talking with Annie, I need a good person for this and that. Now I can get a referral. So, but a semifinalist meets two conditions. Number one, they have to be able to do the work and they have to be formally recognized for it. The reason for that is you've got to convince a hiring manager to see that person. Normally won't unless they box check the skills. So when you take the assignment as a recruiter, I say to the hiring manager, if a person can do this work and have been recognized, would you at least talk to them? Zoom call, quick call. You got to get yes to that. Now you've changed the criteria that a hiring manager is going to use to see a person. It's not box checking skills. No, can they do the work? That's huge when as a recruiter. And I would say, so I'm on this phone call last week with this company because just talked to them, about 400 or 500 people work around the world, Malaysia, Singapore, India. I mean, if you're in the building trade, if you're building a big commercial building, this company's involved. Once I told her that, she said, and there was a president of the company who was on the call, she said, we're going to do it. I said, don't let another rec be approved unless you have the performance objectives figured out. She totally agreed. We're now implementing that process. It's so logical that you have to know the work, but most people don't. So to me, this is where HR can be a leader. You can't take a search assignment without knowing the job. The other half of semifinalists, when you reach out to a candidate, the candidate has to see that job as a career move, not just a lateral transfer. So part of it is we say, so we tell candidate, would you be open to explore something that looks like a good career move? Let's just have a conversation. So it's very conversational, two-way. So that's step two. Step three is we assess the candidate. And I'll show you basically what we do is we ask candidates to give us examples of work they've done that most related. I'll give you a quick example in a minute. But step three is the interview. Then we got to close the candidate. And personally, just to give you a sense, I've personally been involved, and I haven't done much in the last 10 years, but 30 years prior to that, I probably personally handled beginning to end 600 to 700 different search assignments from engineers, managers, directors, vice presidents, and general managers and presidents. You always have to close the deal. And I assume we have a lot of recruiters on this call or HR people. If you can't close the deal within your budget and everything's been up to, that's been a waste of time. So you got to close. This is the deal. You got it. So I cherry pick who I think would obviously take this job and thrive if they do it. So there's a lot of work to get to that. Then you have to onboard people. And let's just say this, we have AI tools that do a lot of the heavy lifting here. But the high touch part is where a person still has to be involved. In America, I think, and I don't know how advanced you are from technology standpoint in Armenia, but things are changing rapidly, almost overnight here in what's going on. And I'd say when I said I retired about 3 years ago, when AI came in, I said, this is a game changer. This is going to change the world and how people get hired. Probably changing faster than I think. I mean, every day you hear about something new comes out. So pretty interesting. Nonetheless, onboarding is critical. So we actually can our tools can actually create a custom onboarding system for this. We can look at the work, we can look at the candidate, we can assess the candidate's strengths and weaknesses, and we can create a 60, 90, or 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan to ensure that candidate's successful on the job. And then we can shift it. We got to deliver on the promise. And we achieve that, we get a win-win hiring outcome. So our North Star is win-win hiring. The methodology to put it together is Moneyball for HR. You got to break the work down in a different way. Performance-based hiring is the business process that puts that all together. and I've got a lot of other stuff I want to talk about, but does this make sense to everybody? What are your thoughts, comments, or questions? I gotta have two questions right now, so I can't go forward until we have two questions. So, and Annie, you can't ask. It's got to be somebody from the group.
Yeah, for me, the first one, when you were telling all of this, the first thing I was thinking about is about the resistance from executives. The situation that you were telling me about, like we look for someone who's very well prepared. I faced the same, and from the CEO himself. So it was C-level themselves. So it's really difficult to kind of communicate this and to change the approach because honestly you cannot do this alone. This is investment from the hiring manager side, from the like decision maker side. What is your both advice in these situations?
Oh, no, that's the hardest part is step one,
Mm,
to get the manager to think, oh, what is the work? So a couple things that I say to a hiring manager, hold on one second. I hope I don't lose you, but my monitor has decided to do something different. We're good. We're back to
sure.
where we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
Uh, it kind of rises by itself, which is kind of odd. Nonetheless, uh, so even when I did this first assignment in 1978,
Hmm.
that company president instantly said, "Oh yeah, you're right. I want someone to turn around the plant." So what I tell to hiring managers, so let's assume I'm talking about hiring managers. I want someone with 10 years of this, a degree here, went to this school, sounds like this, prepared. And I just asked the hiring manager, when are you going to tell the candidate the work they need to be done? When are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them during the interview? You can tell them after the interview. He said, well, I'll tell them sometime. I said, why don't you tell me first? So then I can
Hmm.
find people who want to do that work. Okay, it
Hmm.
makes logical sense. So that's number one.
Hmm.
Number
Hmm.
two, I said, think about the people whom you've hired. Who do you spend more time with? The good people or the people who you shouldn't have hired, the below average people? What do you think they say?
Good
Who the
people, no,
most?
below average one because
Yeah,
they spend more time on teaching, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I said, so
Hmm.
you actually waste your time by hiring people who aren't motivated to do this work. Wouldn't it be better to
Hmm.
hire people for you to spend time hiring your best people? And I said, all you have to do is tell me
Uh-huh.
what the job is. So
Hmm.
that was the first case. If we have a moment here, I can now create these instantly. Any job.
Hmm.
Any job in the world. So to give you an example, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
I have a friend of mine who is my old client. He's sold his company and made quite a bit of money. He's now giving it all to charities. One charity is an abused woman hotline in Southern California. So he said, Lou, they're having trouble hiring people to man the hotlines. Would you help them?
Hmm.
And I said, pro bono. I said, happy to do it. So I talked to the head of that group. I said, tell me a little bit about that job. And it was they have to be on call 24/7. They have to be able to understand the crisis situation, and they have to be able to not only diffuse it, but also do things to, and as a woman who's being abused, obviously the husband could be there, obviously very serious situation. Um,
Hmm.
and they have support services. They know if they got to call the police immediately. I mean, it's a high stress situation. Uh, and I just asked our GPT, which is our AI system, with just that line. I said, I have someone who's needs to hire people to man an abused woman hotline. It came back with exactly what it should be. And then I said, give me an
Hmm.
interview scorecard. It came back instantly. It then said, here's how you assess the person. I mean, this is like 3 to 5 minutes, and I'm on the phone with the head of this, who's a woman, obviously. I'm on the phone with this woman, and we were both blown away. I said,
Hmm.
Mariella, I'm surprised this. So I met this fellow yesterday for breakfast. Was it yesterday? But maybe Tuesday. I can't remember what day it is today. Nonetheless, I met him uh, on Tuesday for breakfast. He said, I read that. I read the report. It's unbelievable. So I think
Hmm.
AI can do a lot of this work. But
Hmm.
typically, Annie, that was getting a manager to buy into that was hard. That's why I quit. It's not hard any longer. It's still hard to hire and do all this other stuff, but the
Hmm.
real heavy lifting and the job, and step one is really the job analysis. And
Hmm.
you, if I mean, just think about this: if you're a recruiter and you're trying to change someone's life, if you don't know the job, that's not fair. If you're a
Exactly.
hiring manager and you're giving someone a job and you don't tell them what the job is, that's not fair. But you really
Mm-hmm.
think about what the world's best managers do is they understand the work and they put the people who want to be motivated to do that work. So that's the core of it. Let's go through some other stuff. These are all important questions, but here's basically the thing that I say. So let me kind of define the whole package and we'll kind of dig deep a little bit. So my point is define the job before defining the purpose. Define success, not skills. That's a typical job description. It's got skills, experience, competencies, must have, academics, got to be prepared on time, all this other stuff. Now, so we got to have more skills. No. So what I do is I say, let's put the skills in the parking lot. What do you want the person to do? And it's always 5 or 6 performance objectives. Okay, you're going to hire a sales team and you got to build and train the sales team to sell widgets. We're going to launch a new product based on AI and manufacturing and industrial valves. Fine, you got to do it in 9 months. You got to go through the factory and reduce costs by 8% in the next year. You got to upgrade our new app design to incorporate notebooks, LM, and AI, including with Gemini and with ChatGPT, whatever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always about work that they need to do. And it's always you define the task, you define the action, you define the result. And here's the interesting piece. Just because someone has all the skills doesn't mean they're motivated to do the work. I mean, a lot of you have lots of skills, but you don't want to do just because you have the skills, you don't want to necessarily do them. I mean, I learned accounting and I could close a set of books. It was boring. I didn't want to do it just because I was capable of doing it. On the other hand, here's what's interesting. If they can do the work in your situation, they'll have exactly the skills they need.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Hey, they want to do that work. I don't know. So some president of a company asked me this question. How much experience does a person need to do this job? I don't know. They have to have enough to do it. Some people need 5 years, some need 10, some need 1 year, some need 30 years. That's the variable is the level of skills. The fixed thing is I got to do the work. And I think we think the skills are fixed. No, the skills are variable based on how good the person is. A smart, capable person needs less. A below average person needs more. So what do you want? More skills? And the best people can learn faster. So even with this construction company, in fact, they then said, when I said it, somebody else on the call, oh yeah, I remember this guy, Chris. He didn't have any of the skills, but he could learn anything quickly. And he gave examples of it. So he learned something in a totally different field, and he's their best person, the best designer now. So it's a lot of it has to do is, so what I would say is a great hire is the person who can do the work. A perfect candidate has all the skills, but a great
Mm-hmm.
hire. So too many people think the job description stuff is fixed and they box check all that. No, make sure the person is competent and motivated to do the work. This is the big shift. This is the leadership thing that HR needs to do. You got to get off that. You got to think about what's the outcome. So what drives success is the work. The dependent variable, we'll get into a little bit of math. The independent variable is the work. The dependent variable means, hey, it's dependent on the work, how smart the capable person is. So why anybody would want someone who's got less skills but can do the work, because that's the high achiever, that's the top half. They learn faster. They get assigned projects. They volunteer for stuff that's over their head and they learn more. So this took me a long time to figure out, 10 years probably when I started. And I was stuck in traffic in Los Angeles. I live in Southern California. And I was stuck there. I was just saw a client, and all of a sudden it hit me. It's what people do with what they have that makes them successful, not what they have. It's what people do with what they have. So what I do when I conduct an interview, I just say, let's go through your work history. Let me find out what you have. Then I look for people, what did you accomplish? So if I find someone with 3 to 4 years who's accomplished 10 years worth of work, that's a good person. If I find someone with 10 years worth of work and they're doing 10 years experience, but only doing 5 years worth of work, that's an average person. That's where we're getting the math of hiring. But to me, this chart, I mean, to me, it's profound because it took 10 years to figure it out. But that's the deal. It's what you people do with what they have that makes them successful, not what they have. So let me kind of
Mm-hmm.
go through the process and we can I've got a few other things I want to show you, but you'll get the sense of it. So here's our whole interviewing process. We're going to assess what people do, not what they have. And if they can do the work, they have exactly the mix of skills. So when I talk to a hiring manager, I say, okay, what are you looking for? And he said skills, experience, and competency. So I say, that's not a that's not a job description, that's a person description. Let's put the job description in the parking lot and define, let's put the person description in the parking lot. Just define the work first. What do you want the person to do? And then I say, if I can find a person who can do that work and is exceptional at it, but has a different mix of skills and experience, would you still see the person? Most managers say yes. And if they say no, I said, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll find people who have all the skills. I'll find a couple of people who can do the work, and you compare whom you want to hire. When I
Mhm.
do that, they say all 100% of the time it's the person who do the work. But it's extra work for me as a recruiter to do it. But most managers, once you define the work, they say, oh yeah, it makes sense. Once they see it, they say, yeah, of course. It's like, oh yeah, duh, I hadn't thought of that before. So it turns out, but you as a recruiter or an HR person have to convince them to make this shift, and it's not an insignificant shift. It's huge in terms of the results you get. So step one is we define work as a series of performance objectives. KPOs are key performance objectives or objectives and results. That's other terms you can look up. We then conduct a work history review of the candidate when we're interviewing that person. Go through what job you have, what kind of work are you doing, why did you change jobs, have you been promoted, did you get recognized for anything? So we conduct a work history review to see if there's a fit. We then ask what we call the most significant accomplishment question. Hey, one of the big things you have to do in this project is launch a new project over the next 6 months. Tell me what you've accomplished like that. Another
Mhm.
thing you have to do is we got to reduce operating costs by 5% in this business process. What have you done related to that? So we just have the person tell us what they've accomplished with each of those accomplishments. And we spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes on each one. So most of the work is digging into that. We then might ask a problem solving question, which, and I want to state this loudly, it is not a hypothetical. It is a real problem this person might face on the job. Hey, we've got to get this project launched for this new system we're building, but it has to be done in 6 months. Normally, it would take 9 months to do it, so we're under the pressure to do it. If you were to get this job, how would you do this? So you want to get into the person figuring out if they even understand how to attack the problem. It's very interesting, but it cannot be a hypothetical. It has to be a realistic problem, and it's a give and take discussion to see if the person just has good problem solving skills. I don't want to get into that. If you buy Annie's the book that Annie has, or you buy one, it'll show you the whole thing. But
Yeah,
that's the idea we
that's
have
fun.
here. And AI can do a lot of this stuff for you now. I mean, you can create the interviews. Even what we're doing now is we're taking transcript of the interviews, uploading them with a performance-based job description and seeing, hey, does the candidate meet that criteria for the job? So AI can do a lot of the assessment here, but you have to define the job. If you don't define the job, you're measuring against wind and air and hot air. So let me kind of talk. This is the last thing I want to talk about, plus Q&A. So we'll do that. So now this is when Annie, you said, how do you get a hiring manager to agree to this?
Mhm.
So I'm going to go back to 1990, and I started talking with hiring managers. And Annie, just for everyone else, before this program started earlier, an hour or so ago, Annie asked me, "You've trained 90,000 or 70,000 recruiters," and I said, "No, probably 10,000 recruiters, but 60,000 hiring managers." So it was us training hiring managers. Once I, as a recruiter, started doing this work, defining the work as performance objectives, their company said, "Hey, can you train all our managers?" I started training recruiters 10 years later. It was more, hey, we're training hiring managers to do it right. And I was a recruiter, so they'd always give me search assignments. So it was kind of an interesting marketing idea. But when I started a
Mhm.
program with hiring managers, this is how I started a program. So imagine I got 30 hiring managers in a room, now on a Zoom call. I say to this question, the goal of this course is to measure quality of hire to improve your hiring results. But I want to ask you here, I said, at the end of this program, we're going to show you how to score a candidate. But I want to ask you a few questions to begin. So you got to remember, this is in the morning, they're going through this class, 3-hour class. I said, would you, the minute you talking to hiring managers, see a candidate who has a track record of doing work similar to what you need done? I just asked that question. And they said, oh, okay, I guess. They kind of shake their head. I said, well, let me add a little of the criteria to it. What if they've solved difficult problems just like you need done and have a track record of similar results? They said, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
I guess I do that. And a little bit more positive. I said, well, let me add another thing to it. What if they've been recognized for being in the top quartile of their peer group? They've written papers about it. They coach people about it. They train people about it. They've spoken at some conference, or they got a blog, or they're on GitHub to do it. Oh yeah, they're definitely, if they're that good, we'd see them. So we're not done yet. What about if they not only have all that, but they're also good at managing and building teams and working collaborative with teams? Oh yeah, we definitely want to hire those people, no question. I mean, they're excited. I said, but let's be frank. What if that person had a different mix of skills and experience on your job description, but could still do all of that work? Would you throw away, would you give some relief on the skills? And they stop and say, oh, yeah, I guess we would. Yeah, you're probably right. We would definitely want to hire people who could do the work. And I said, these are top 25% people. I got to tell you something else here. We got a problem. If they don't fit with you, your style, and don't fit with your culture company, they're not going to be as good. So we got to assess that as well. Oh yeah, okay, okay, we'll assess that. And they got to be motivated to do the work you want done. So you got to tell me what this work is. Oh, okay, we'll tell you. I said, let me say this again. To me talking to 30 hiring managers. These are
Mhm.
people who can do the work. They've been recognized for doing exceptionally well. They'll raise your talent bar. They'll be able to change things. You won't need to manage them as hard. Uh, these are great people. Oh yeah, we want them. We want them. Let's go. Let's go. And they're all excited. I said, you got to give them a 30% increase though. 30 people in a room, all excited, loud, noisy, and stone silence.
Mhm.
Oh no, we can't do that. I said, but it's not money. It's not money. It's the non-monetary factors. Money has to be competitive, but you got to give them a 30% non-monetary increase. It's got to be some stretch. 5 or 10% of the 30% could be a bigger job. 5 or 10% could be a bigger impact. They're a smaller company doing more impact company wide. 5 or 10% could be satisfaction. They like doing this work. And it's got to be growth. It's got to, if they're not growing year after year, it's over. So another 5 or 10%. So your goal is to give people a 30% non-monetary increase. That's the only way you're going to achieve a win-win hiring outcome. And I said, but the first thing you're going to do is you're not going to use job descriptions anymore. So for the rest of this program, we're going to throw away job descriptions. Skills are a waste of time. They get you in trouble. You can't hire the right person. You can't hire people like this. So I said, so at least for the next 2 to 3 hours, as I go through this workshop, think about never using a skills-based job description again. I know that will be hard, but that's what we have to do to achieve these kind of results.
Mhm.
And when we do it, managers actually do it. What turns out now, I can create these job descriptions instantly, just like I did for this call center. I mean, for somebody in a crisis center. That was always the hard part, but getting hiring managers to see this, logically they went forward. So let me kind of give you the score, how we measure quality of hire, though.
Mhm.
A level one is someone who, in the bottom third, there are people who have the skills, experience, and competencies, but not really motivated to do the work. You hired them, they probably got a good personality, they were hungry for the job, but they did all the things. They're reasonably competent, but not motivated at all to do the work for one reason or other. They don't fit for one reason or other. The bottom 10% are the real bad hires. You shouldn't have hired them anyway. Bottom third, though, they're hard to get rid of the bottom third. A lot of companies have legal things. Once you hire someone, now level two, about the 50, they're basically qualified. Solid people, get the job done, not highly motivated to doing it, uh, but they're good. But they're not great. They just okay. And that's a lot of hires are level two. A level three is the top third. These are people who are competent, motivated, get the work done, reliable, good quality skills. These are people who you can trust to handle tough projects and will get it done. A great hire. Level 4 is the top 15 to 20%. And I tell hiring managers, you hire a level 4, this person will be your peer in 3 years. They're that good. So you better give them a job that lets them grow that fast. And a level
Mhm.
5 will probably be your boss in 2 to 3 years. Just recognize that. I said, but here's the secret. It's hard to determine the difference between a 2, 3, or 4, or 3, 4, and 5. It's hard. It's all the fit factors. All the that's hard. So here's the key to hiring success. You throw away your job descriptions, you define the work, and no level twos. You just find people who are motivated to do that work in your situation. You spend most of your time in the interview making sure they're somewhere top third, and who knows? Some situations they'll be in the top third, sometimes they'll be in the top 5%. As long as they're motivated to do that work in your situation, you got a great hire. They will be in the top third. And sometimes they'll be better than others, but they'll always be motivated to do the work. You do those things, throw away job descriptions, no twos in terms of motivation, you're in the game. That's performance-based hiring.
Mm.
So now let me ask you this question. I'll answer it.
Oh,
I want you
wow.
to write down of all the things I've said, what's the most important thing I said today? Most important thing I said. Come up with,
Let us
everybody's got to put in something. Most
let
important thing
us
I
write
said. I know
that.
it's late at night for you guys, but hopefully you'll be awake all night thinking of this. So come in here. I got 100 people here. I need 100 answers. Most important thing I heard each and every word. Well, come on, honey. Thank you.
No, it's really like that.
Okay, keep
I
on
think
going.
I've read your
L1 to
book around
L5,
seven
okay.
times. Yeah.
So I want to see them. Okay, let's go here. I got two. The drivers of success are not skills, they're situations. Good, thanks, Mary. Yeah, you're right. Motivation is the key. And let me just say this about motivation. Sometimes you can be very, very quiet and introverted and be highly motivated. And sometimes you can be loud, outgoing, friendly, warm, prepared. That doesn't mean you're motivated. To get at motivation, what I do is when I ask these questions about, uh, tell me about your best accomplishments, I'm asking as part of that is, where did you go the extra mile? What kind of work in that did you really like? What kind of work did you go take the initiative? So I'm getting clues each time I see it to see a pattern of motivation. And if I make a decision whether the person is aggressive or assertive in the interview, that has nothing to do with motivation on the job. And that's very important. Sometimes very quiet people in the right situation, they get equally as motivated. So that's why I give you my last clue. This might be the best clue at all. Best clue at all. So everybody listen carefully. This is the best one. I forgot to tell you. I can't believe it. Oh no, what am I going to
No,
do?
I think so.
Best clue at all. I'm a good interviewer. I became a great interviewer when I decided I didn't care if I liked the person or not. I call it the Sherlock Holmes technique. I became a great interviewer when I said somebody else made the decision if that person's good or not. That person's boss, those person's peers, they've got 3 to 5 or 10 years of work experience. How can I judge this person in a half hour? I just got to find out other people judge these people. So I call that the Sherlock Holmes evidence technique. And in technology or at most jobs, it doesn't matter what the job is. If the person's been assigned big teams, obviously they've got good team skills. If they've been assigned stretch projects, they've obviously have technical skills. So I just look for evidence of where this person went the extra mile and how other people judge this candidate. If the candidate's always getting average jobs year after year, they're an average person. I mean, but you can't make a judgment whether you like the person or not. You got to look for evidence that what other people assign this person. It's not what you do, is what you have that counts. Okay, any questions we want? I think these are coming in. The quote of performance based is a business process. God, you guys are good. I've got to take you to my next conference. I think I'm going to be in Paris in
When?
October.
October? October in Paris. Mr.
Okay,
Adler, can
so
I ask one question? Let me provide context on that. You asked about AI and technical adaptation here in Armenia. It's not happening that fast, but still it's happening. And after months, we see what the same is being repeated of what's in US. And as far as I remember, like the previous year, our tech sector, it was around 7 to 8% of our GDP. So quite fast. Now I want to ask, like, so you need at this moment of time as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, you need to hire for immediate performance, right? Immediate good performance. And this is needed. Everyone is looking for result-oriented professionals to be able to perform now. But from the other side, we have these market dynamics, and market is changing quite fast, and skills are being changed quite fast. So how to balance this in Moneyball for HR? How to balance this as a recruiter, as someone who's responsible for people's lives, as you have mentioned.
Okay, we're going to do something a little weird here, but you got to bear with
Okay.
me. I'm going to unshare this. Let me unstop the share. And I'm going to go to another share, which is going to be, got to find my Safari. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, let's share that. That's not what I want to share. That had that happen. So stop the share. Share. Okay, so I've got to go here. Sorry, guys, but I'm going to go here. So I just put in something in chat, which is a bunch of free tools. Uh, but
Making
one of the
summary.
tools is our 24/7 hotline. So we call this hotline Digital Lou. So your question again, Annie, well, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Digital Lou the answer to the questions if he comes up with it.
Mm, okay.
We'll see. If not, we'll
So you have trained AI based on your model?
Past 40 years, I've been helping
Oh,
candidates,
that's
recruiters, and hiring
great.
managers attract, interview, and recruit candidates for professional staff and management positions in large and small companies. How can I help you either find a better job or hire a great person?
Hey Lou, I've got a bunch of recruiters and HR people in Armenia. They're under the pressure to hire great people, but don't have time to do it. What advice would you give them?
The first thing I tell them is this: stop trying to do everything at once. When recruiters are under pressure, they often default to reactive hiring, posting jobs, screening resumes, and rushing through interviews. That's a recipe for mediocre hires and burnout. Instead, they need to slow down and focus on what I call performance-based hiring. Define the job as a series of outcomes, not a list of skills. What does success look like in 6 months, in a year? That clarity will save them time later. Next, they need to prioritize networking over cold outreach. 90% of top candidates find their jobs through referrals, not job boards. So your team should spend more time building relationships and less time chasing strangers. Teach them to ask every candidate, who's the best person you've ever worked with? That one question can unlock a goldmine of pre-qualified leads. Finally, they need to master the 30-minute exploratory call. This isn't about selling the job. It's about understanding the candidate's career goals and seeing if there's a match. Done right, it's the most efficient way to engage passive candidates and convert jobs into career moves. How are they currently splitting their time between sourcing, screening, and networking? That'll tell us where the biggest opportunity for improvement lies.
Okay, so uh,
Okay.
you can. Let me. I'm going to go back to share something else, and then we'll end our program today. But happy to let me share something else with you guys, which I'm giving you. Well, Digitaloo. Unfortunately, the way the system works, you get a few free calls, and then they charge you like a 10 cents a minute. So nothing I can do about it. This is how they set it up.
Mhm.
But let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, go back to
Mr.
here.
Adler, it's your voice, right? Did I
Oh
get it
yeah,
right? It's your voice.
yeah, well, here's what happened. My wife doesn't think it's my voice, but I think it is. So
Okay.
uh, I uploaded like 1,000 articles, all the books, all the training, and a 5 minute uh, voice thing. They listened to my voice for 5 minutes, and I said, give it a New York edge because that's where I was born, New York City, and it's pretty good. But so here at Moneyball, I put it in the chat area. You have access to this tool, uh, Moneyball for HR. It gives you some free stuff. Uh, overview of our system, how to create job. It gives you a simple job description, how to conduct an interview, and then the hotline and the Moneyball rule book. So it keeps you get in the game here. You should have fun with that, with Recruiter Lou anyway. And so let me just end this story with, so this company I'm talking about, this do design work in the construction industry. The president of the company is a woman. Uh, so at the end of it, I asked them a similar question. What was the most important thing you heard today? And I said and it was late at night for them. It was like 6 or 7 at night, like for you guys, and I could see everybody was tired. And I said, well, let me ask Digital Lou what the most important thing was. I said pretty much the same thing. Define work as a series of performance objectives. You as a hiring manager it will be transformative if you're a hiring manager. So Danielle, who was the president of the company, says, I want to marry Digital Lou. Her husband was on the call. I said, don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. You're on your own there, but that's so it was fun. But it seems to
Yeah.
it does pretty good advice. I'm surprised. It's kind of scary actually, to tell you the truth, that it gives the advice that I think it's pretty right on. So hopefully you guys have more of that. It was great chatting with you. I'll take a few questions if you have any. I'm happy to hang on a minute or two if you want.
Yeah, let me see if we have questions or not. Okay, bunch of thank yous. Yeah, and this question is, let me read it for you. In your book, you wrote that recruiting the best is not about selling or charming, but about offering big challenges and career opportunities. Considering your hiring formula for success, oh, I missed it. Wait.
Yeah, I know it moves.
Uh, yeah, it moves because people are writing. It's Kima, my student is writing. I want to read it until the end. So, okay. Yeah, what would be the key steps for high touch roles in luxury retail, premium automotive, and hospitality field, where the wow factor matters here? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't hear exactly the situation, so let me kind of make it generic for a lot
Yeah,
of different people. So, and I'm going to give you a couple stories which I think are relevant. Sometimes we think what's important for the job is not important. So a friend of mine was the VPHR of the Wynn hotels in Las Vegas, the big gambling casinos. And he was
mm,
high, and they were just opening them up. It's probably 20, 30 years ago, and putting all these new big buildings up. And I think it was also in Hong Kong, Malaysia, Macau, I think. So he was involved in all of that. And he found that hospitality people, particularly in those restaurants that serving drinks and all the whole things you do in a restaurant or a hotel, the ability to deal with people real time, asking lots of questions was the critical skill. So, and it being disrupted all the time. And he found this being disrupted all the time was the skill. So what he did, so you got this giant hotel opening up in Las Vegas or Macau. People would line up, thousands of people would line up. So what he did is once people filled in their application, he'd send them down a hallway. And down the hallway, somebody would come out of the room and disrupt them. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry you did that. And if the person got flustered, they would send them to the exit. If they didn't get
mm,
flustered, they'd send them to the full interview. It was that thing of the ability to deal with frustration and things happening all the time was critical. That wasn't the whole
mhm,
job, but if they couldn't deal with that, they were out of it. We did something else
mhm,
where someone was in a call center. It was taking inbound insurance claims. And I asked the hiring managers, it was like 5,000 people over 6 different insurance call centers. Each call center had 500, 800 people listening to the phones all the time. They're probably all in India now.
mhm,
Nonetheless, they were handling 3 to 5 or 6 inbound calls at one time, checking insurance claims. Uh, and we had the job defined as a series of performance objectives. So I said, well, and it was like it was somewhere in Los Angeles area, and I said, well, let's put some names around this. So I said, and these people for different parts of the United States, New York, New Jersey, Texas. I said, tell me about the best people in each of your groups. So each of these groups, we had 3 or 4 names, 3 or 4, most of them women, but 3 or 4 names. And I
mhm,
said, now we had 20 names here. I said, are all of these people exactly that profile you have written there? They said, no. I said, what's common about all of these 20 people? What it was 100% attendance. The
Mm,
job wasn't that hard. It was showing up and doing it. It was a very structured job day to day to day. So the only thing I can say is when you build this performance-based job description, also assign names to it. Benchmark the best people who work for you and find out what do they do that's the same. And then all of a sudden you now compare the two to see what it is. We've done that lots of times, but benchmarking the best might be, and again, I'm sorry because I'm not 100% sure I heard the exact question, but I think that's a good answer for a lot of other questions you might have. So I think we've got to run now. Thank you very much. Hopefully this
yeah.
was helpful. Thank you, Annie. Thank you for inviting me. Good luck, everybody. You have an enormous opportunity in HR. Make sure you change the rules and make it happen. Don't just sit with the status quo. Take a leadership role, make it happen. Take the risk. The risk sometimes it's more risky not to do anything than it is to do something. So I urge you, do something important. Play Moneyball for HR. Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you very much for bringing your experience, Mr. Adler. And whenever you decide to have a vacation in Armenia, just ping us. Bye bye. Thanks.